And we're live. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Adobe Live. My name is, my name is Tim Möbest, and I'm very happy to have you all back on this wonderful Monday morning, or afternoon, or evening, or good night, wherever you're on the world. And right next to me, in person, as always, Sam Peterson. Hi.
Hey, everybody. What's going on, guys?
How are you on this fine day?
I'm doing fantastic, Tim.
That's awesome. Like, are you excited for today?
I'm very much, yeah. I'm ready to paint some characters, ready to doodle some things.
Oh,
good to go.
Okay. Should we just jump right in, or should we? No, wait. You know what? First, let's take a look at the chat because, of course, there are so many people in here already. Colby, Alberto, Tanya, Tunch, Chad, Valder, Richard, Patty. So great to see you. Yes, it's me, and you will enjoy 2 hours of German accent and amazing drawing skills, courtesy of Sam Peterson. I hope I'm sounding all right, and I hope Sam is also, the audio levels are fine. Let me know if you have any issues on your end so I can fix that. Hopefully it should work, because this is indeed the second international stream ever. Like, I'm in Germany right now, and Sam is indeed in, where are you?
I am in Los Angeles. I didn't know this was the second one. That's
yeah,
pretty
rather
cool.
was the first. I mean, we were in the same room, of course.
Yeah,
right.
Obviously.
Obviously.
We're making it happen.
Hi Lee, hi Dennis, hi Malik. So great to have you here. All right, this is not the only stream for today. No. We do have so many other streams queued up, and let me just show you the schedule. I think that would be the best idea. Starting the day, we have Victoria Pavlov and Terry White drawing in Illustrator and raster graphics at not 9 a.m. at 7:30 a.m. Pacific time, so early in the day. Oh my god. At 9 a.m. Pacific time, Voodoo Val was just live showing the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge. Right now you're seeing this stream with me and Sam Peterson. We're doing character design in Photoshop. After that, at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, you can see Paul Trenny with the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge. And at 12 p.m. Pacific time, Adobe Live UX UI design with Evan Place, Peter Del Tonto. At 2 p.m. Pacific time, you can see Howard Pinsky returning for the second week of the Daily Creative Challenge in XD. And finally, no, that's not even it. We're not done yet. At 2:30 p.m. Pacific time, Alex Lazarus is joining us for Adobe Dimension, I believe. I think, yeah, it should be Dimension. Designing in 3D may also contain a bit of Photoshop. I'm not sure about that yet. And finally, to close the day, Paul Trenny will create some video backgrounds for video conferences, something I think everybody needs at the moment because we're in so many Zoom meetings, like this one. And I think just a fine background could really help with that. All right. 1 million miles apart. That's right. Adobe Magic, Adobe Cadabra. That's right. Hi, Sam. Oh, that's you. Like, hi,
hello.
Sam. Who's that Sam? I wonder. Right. Okay.
I'm everywhere.
Two more things before we finally get started, because I know you are all just waiting for Sam to start drawing. Two things. The first one, we will do a chat and win. Yes, in this stream, you will be able to win 100 custom 3" by 3" stickers from Stickermule. They are die cut, they are amazing, so don't miss that. I will put a countdown in the lower part of the stream in 15 minutes, actually. And the second thing is, we will do a portfolio review. We will review your portfolios, so make sure to submit them to Discord. I will show you how to do that in a moment. But first, Sam. I just looked to your side, so I pretend like I'm actually looking at you. Hi. So,
hey, everybody.
Tell us, who are you and what are you doing today?
That is the question.
That's a lot of fun.
My name's Sam Peterson. I'm a concept artist and illustrator. I do a lot of fantasy illustration and characters. Characters and creatures are primarily what I do. So a lot of drawing and painting based stuff. That's my forte. And I'm going to be doing some character work today. I've been doing some freelance stuff lately that's been very heavily character based, and I want to do something that kind of shows my process for those characters. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be something very similar to that.
And this is your Behance portfolio. You can get to that portfolio by clicking on the info tab right above the chat. There should be a link to his portfolio, and I believe also my portfolio, which you don't have to look at because that's not important at the moment. But do definitely check out Sam's portfolio. Give him a follow. Check out the projects. Awesome projects. One of them is actually right behind us. Ta-da! This is one of his. This is the collage. I believe that No, wait, that's not a project, isn't it? Is it?
It's a collage I put together of a bunch of the different things that I have. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So many different projects. So definitely check out the portfolio. And yeah, I think with that, that's all I have to say. And what do you think? Should we get started?
Yeah. So if you guys haven't seen my work, this kind of gives you a good overview of what I do. Some illustration stuff, very, like I said, heavily fantasy leaning. And I wanted to show you some of the things that I've done lately. I think pretty much all of it you can find on this Behance page. But this is very similar to what we'll be doing today. So here's some recent pieces I just wanted to go through and kind of show you what we'll be doing. So this was a quick character painting. I've actually started a YouTube channel. So I was trying to get some time-lapse footage, and I recorded this process. So this one didn't have a huge purpose to it, except I just wanted to paint something kind of fun and random. And this is like my default.
As we always do.
Yeah, gruff looking warrior guys is usually my go-to. This one here was a commission that I did. It's a D&D character that's kind of this, obviously very much like a gunslinger cowboy western type of character. This was a random sketch, much looser. I've been trying to experiment with getting a little bit looser with my brush strokes, a little bit more efficient and quick with my painting. And I decided to, he's holding a little kitten, maybe warming his cold heart a little bit there. This was just kind of a random sketch. This was actually something I recorded for a YouTube video. I have not edited or finished that YouTube video yet. I'm hoping to some point, but it was on a tutorial of how I blend in Photoshop. I'd say I have 2 or 3 different ways I blend primarily in Photoshop. So I kind of cover those in the video. So, to be released sometime in the future. Yeah, exactly. Hopefully not too far.
Soon-ish.
This was, maybe a week, maybe 2. I don't know. We'll see. This was another actual YouTube video. This was on the topic of motivation. The previous one was, I think, how to get started with art. So this was just kind of a fun time-lapse footage thing that I did. This was a piece that I finished pretty recently that I spent way too long on. And this was like a big kind of Dungeons and Dragons illustration with a whole party here. So this one took quite some time, but I feel like I learned a lot with it, even though I feel like I took too long with it. But it was fun. So that was one of the most recent pieces I finished, actually. And finally, something I'm in the middle of, which is this piece. So this is a commission I'm doing, and this is 4 characters here. None of these are finished, but they're getting there. Some are a little bit more done than others, but we're going to be doing something similar to this today, where I kind of walk you through the process of a character's design, how I block out the painting, how I kind of think about the design and all that. So,
all right, let me just look at the chat for a second, because I will be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions about the process in general, about Sam's work, what he does, do post them in the Behance chat. We are reading the Behance chat, so if you're watching this from anywhere else or if you're watching the replay, that's fine. Thank you very much for tuning in. But if you're watching this live and you would like to participate in the chat and win, because you're winning some stickers, and if you also like to ask some questions, come on over to behance.net/live/Adobe Live, and then you can post your questions. I will take a look at the chat, and I will be very rude and disturb Sam all the time with your questions, so keep them coming. Also,
I look forward to it.
Look at the chat for a second. Yeah, chat, that's right. Sam does stream a lot of his work. You should definitely check that out. Reminds me of Hearthstone, says Blair. Hello, so nice.
Oh, cool.
And I saw one comment that was just so funny. I have to scroll up for a second. This will get me banned, but this is freaking nice. So yes, thank you very much, I think.
Thank
All
you.
right. Hi, Cindy. Hi, everybody. How long is too long? What do you mean, the stream? We are doing this for 2 hours today, and during the final 30 minutes, we will review your portfolio. So maybe that would be the time. No, not. I will tell you how to submit them later during the stream. Stay tuned, because right now I think we have wasted enough time already. 10 minutes. Should we get started? What do you think? Or would you like to show some more? We can do both.
Yeah, I'll just kind of overview what we're going to do. I'll not take too long with this, but basically the process for the characters you're seeing now is what we're going to be kind of doing. So I wanted to show you a little walkthrough of roughly how I do that. I start with a sketch like this. Oftentimes I try to have a pretty good idea of what I'm going to be working on, the brief, the idea behind it. So if I have that, I usually do some rough sketches to get my ideas out on paper. I do love looking up reference, and I think it's very important, but oftentimes I like trying to see what I can get from my own head first. So a lot of times I'll do really rough sketches like this. This was actually given to me by the client, which is kind of a reference sheet for the different styles and designs they wanted incorporated into this character. Oftentimes, if I don't get this from the client, which typically you don't, they just kind of went above and beyond, I'll make it myself. So I'll kind of do the sketch, get some ideas, look up a reference, and then start trying to incorporate that into my sketch. So I looked at a lot of these designs, the different colors, the different patterns, and I wanted to incorporate that into this. So I kind of worked that into this rough sketch. The next step, because I do like working with lines and shape lately, and I'll show you that in just a moment when we get started. But this is kind of the rough color block in. I've been trying to be really loose with my work lately, very just kind of swatching colors down everywhere to find a color palette that I like. So you can see when we zoom in, it's super sketchy and loose. It's just a bunch of blobs of color. And that's a way I like working. And then from there, it's basically refining it. You can see back and forth. We're kind of going for the face because that's the focal point that I want to focus on. So I want to get that down first. Adding a little bit of lighting.
Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I have some questions in the chat. For example, how long did it take you to develop that style?
Oh man,
a lifetime, right?
It's always evolving. Yeah, just the other week I tried a different style as an experiment, or not a different style, but a different approach, a different workflow, and it didn't work out. It was kind of a experiment that didn't really pan out, but I mean that's kind of what you have to do.
And where do you get most of your character ideas from, especially faces?
Like reference or just ideas? Yeah, reference definitely different places online. A lot of times I'll have an idea for what the character's personality should be or what they should look like, and I'll try to focus on the big shapes, what I'm trying to convey. You know, if they're sinister looking, do they have like a certain shape face that accentuates that, or anything I can kind of pull from my head, and then usually I'll use reference to try to reinforce that.
Awesome.
At a certain point, when I get this to a blobby mess that I can't really refine anymore from here to here, like the jade jewelry that's around his neck, I kind of have to draw it out. So I actually have been doing selective line drawing because I've been painting completely from blotchy swatches here. But then some designs I have to draw out because I can't really just make this up by painting it. Doing that in shape is really difficult for me when it gets to fine designs and structure like hands. So lately I've actually just been going from this rough block in. I'm not drawing really much. I'm just kind of blocking it in. But at a certain point, when I no longer know the structure from my head, I have to draw it out. So that's kind of been my process. And that's kind of what you guys can expect to see today.
And Paul says, hi Paul, I'd love to see some of Sam's earlier work. Yes, maybe we can show that later during the stream because we already have talked for 15 minutes. And I think my fingers are itching, or I hope your fingers are itching to paint something in Photoshop. So I think it's about time. And we do have about 15 minutes until chat and wins. So I will put that countdown right here. So I will explain everything there is to know about chat and win in about 15 minutes. All right. Back to you, Sam.
Good. If you guys want to see older work, you could go to my DeviantArt. If you search Sam Peterson DeviantArt, you should be able to find it. And also, if you scroll all the way down to my Instagram, you'll see some older stuff. But maybe tomorrow I can show you guys super old stuff, which is when I first started, and it's pretty bad.
Like also stick figures, which are probably still better than my drawings nowadays.
I mean, I have some stuff from when I first started, like around 10 years ago. So
and
it's on this computer somewhere.
So should you keep your old work in your portfolio, and which work should you keep in your portfolio? Do you still have like very bad work or bad work that you consider like, oh, that wasn't really great? Do you keep that in your portfolio, or do you just remove them?
I try to get, like, if it's a portfolio site like Behance or ArtStation or, any of those things where you're showing a gallery, I try to curate that to the best stuff. If it's something like an online sketchbook, if anyone's familiar with those, or Instagram. You know, I think it's fine to keep all that stuff because it shows your journey, which I think is cool, but I don't think it's appropriate for all platforms because some you're trying to show your best, you know, your best side and only show kind of what you want employers to see.
Especially because you have to remember clients will see this portfolio and they will be judging you based on that. And if you put some work on there which you're not happy with, maybe they just want you because of that work, or maybe they don't want you because they see some work they didn't like. So I think we will talk about that a bit more during the portfolio review session, so I won't talk too much about that. Portfolio reviews is coming up in about 1 hour and 15 minutes, by the way. Okay.
Yeah, and I think different social medias have different purposes, right? Like Behance, the way I look at it is very much a professional gallery type of site. But other ones I think are much more, you're like interacting with the community, other artists and people, and you're kind of sharing your learning process and all that. So I would say some are fine to show all your old work, but that's usually if you're showing your journey and, you know, other artists. But if it's a gallery site, yeah, I'd stick your best work in there.
And Maria's asking what brush are you using right now? And I saw another question. What's your favorite Photoshop brush, if you have any favorite brushes?
I have two. So I don't know the names of them. I think this is Feng Huizong's brush. He has like one brush in his brush set. It kind of looks like that when you stamp it. I really like it because it gives me kind of a cool texture when I do this, like a more soft touch. So this is more my finishing brush. You'll see me use this past the 60% mark in a painting where I'm no longer chiseling the shapes in, but when I'm trying to refine the texture and get a little bit more finish. So that's maybe my favorite brush. It's pretty much tied with this brush, which I'm going to be using probably exclusively this stream. I like this for chiseling in shapes. It's very hard-edged. I can be very aggressive with it. I can get my angles down. If I'm doing a character, we'll actually probably be doing these soon. Sometimes I'll actually block in the shape of their silhouette. You know, if it's a person, and I can play with like maybe he has shoulder pads here, or maybe he kind of has these horns going back. You know, I can really be quick and aggressive with my shapes. So those are my two favorite brushes. I don't know if you actually, I could have the link to the brushes if you guys want them.
Yeah.
I have a lot of brushes in this brush pack. Let me see here.
But by the way, if you don't have access to brushes like this, you do have access to Kyle Webster's brushes. And I know I'm saying this all the time, but many people don't know this. If you're a Creative Cloud subscriber, or if you subscribe to Photoshop, you do have access to to all Kyle Webster's brushes right from Photoshop. Just click on the little gear icon in the corner of the brushes manager, and then you can jump right to that page and download. I think it's over 1,000 brushes by now. It's really great.
Oh, wow.
Really great resource. And how do you spell? Yeah,
so,
okay, you can share the link at some point. Okay.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I said one thing and then I just.
I'm back to drawing.
Yeah, I gotta draw. I just space out when I draw. All right, so I did upload it, and the brushes are all here. You can see there's 3, 6, 9. There's quite a few, but the top 3 are the only ones I really use. The sampled brush 1-3, Peileng's brush, and the inking brush. Of course, the airbrush too, I use that. The others are kind of extras that I use maybe 1% of the time. So there is the Google Drive link. But those first 2 and maybe 3 are my go-tos.
Nice.
So what I want to talk about first with this is when I'm doing a character, I like to block out both in shape lately and line. So you can see I'm doing line, but sometimes if I'm doing a character, and they have a very large silhouette of some kind, I like to get that down. So let's say we're doing some hulking type character, like let's say the Hulk or some bootleg Hulk. We'll see.
Some generic non-licensed Hulk. The bulk.
Some Hulk I won't. Yeah, the bulk. Something I won't get sued for. A lot of times it really depends. It's situational. It's not like one process is the best, and that's something I've found very repeatedly throughout my learning journey, is that there's no best way, and it's always a process that you're using that's currently solves a problem. So I've changed my process and my workflow because I had a specific issue with the painting I was doing. And I found that changing it up in this way, whatever that way may be at the time, was something that helped me overcome that specific issue. So I don't think there's a best way, but lately I've really been enjoying drawing in shape and line at the same time. So my sketches have been really messy. Some of those sketches I showed you earlier kind of show that it's a bit of a mess. They're not clean lines or anything. And
Whitney says, I got Sam's brushes, now I will be as good as him, clearly. Yeah, that's how it works. You just download the brushes, and then you also download the skill, and then you are just as good as drawing as he is. That's right.
You're still waiting for that Matrix skill download patch.
Oh, that would be so great. I would just, I don't know, plug myself in, like, boop, and then I know everything there's to know about painting and drawing.
Yeah. I think a part of me would almost be bitter. I'd be like, what did I spend 10 years doing?
Right? And so many people just say, hey, wow, you are so talented. And you're like, no, I spent years and years, decades to perfect this. I'm not talented. And as Victoria said earlier today, you don't really have to be talented to draw. You just have to practice over and over again. And I think everybody can draw, just like Bob Ross said.
Definitely. You should see my stuff from the first couple years. Like it's not the art of someone who is talented. It's a mess, but I mean, you gotta suck at everything a little bit before you get good at it. Is the Jake Finn quote, or sucking is the first step to being sort of good at something, I think. It's words to live by.
That sounds familiar. Yeah. I can see that.
So here's an example of me trying to do a bit of silhouetting. And it's not like I have to do this step specifically first. I just kind of do it while it's solving the problem I feel like I'm having with the shape. And at any point, I may just go in and, kind of start drawing on top of it. But it's definitely been something that I've been enjoying lately, because I can just kind of free form, explore a design, explore a shape, and I don't have to put pressure on myself like, okay, I got to do clean lines first and I can't move on until I finish those. Kind of allows me just to go wild with it and have fun. But it really depends on the character. Some make sense for that, some not so much. And then before we go on to the actual character we'll be doing, I'll be introducing that shortly. I did want to kind of talk about how I block out characters. And I actually wanted to make a YouTube video on this some point called Advanced Stick Figures, because people are always saying like, oh man, I can only draw stick figures. Or some people say, I can't even draw a stick figure, but I wanted to make a video that basically covers that topic.
That like, okay, nice.
If you can draw a stick figure.
Yeah.
What's that?
I would watch that. That would be nice.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you can draw a stick figure, all right, that's step one. Let's do advanced stick figures, and I'll show you guys what I mean by that. So I think the key to getting good at art, or to getting good at anything with art, like drawing animals or characters or anything like that, is breaking down what those things are made up of. So a fundamental thing with figure drawing of any kind and characters is anatomy and the human figure, right? So I think the structure of that needs to be broken down into simplified terms, because the body is so complex. There's so many muscles and so much stuff going on with anatomy. It's endlessly complex if you think about it like that. But if you try to simplify everything, and I've found that's what I do for literally anything, light, color, anatomy, I can only digest that info if I break it down into a simplified form. So what I do for the human body, my advanced stick figures, if you will, is basically kind of what you see with this guy a little bit. He's kind of a skeleton, right? So what I like to do, very simple, is the rib cage. We'll do this real quick. The head, his head's too small. Rib cage too big, head too small.
And do you have to study anatomy for that, or do you just figure it out while drawing? Just by trying out?
Yeah, I think you definitely need to study anatomy because you need to take this information from somewhere. So look at a skeleton, and you can draw that skeleton out. You could spend like 50 hours doing it, photorealistically. But what I'm trying to do is take that skeleton and break it down into a little like armature. As if you're sculpting and you create a little armature that basically mimics the skeleton. That's essentially what this is. So I do a rib cage, and the rib cage actually, doesn't have this part. Kind of looks like that overall. This would be in the back, but I'm not drawing that. I do this sort of egg shape, and I mark where the ribs are, and then I do a box for the hips. And you don't need to do a box. You don't need to do an egg shape. Like I use a box for the head, egg shape for the rib cage, box for the hips, and then sticks for the arms and legs. But that's just because it makes sense to me. So this is kind of. I'll show you the stick figure first, and then we'll do it in perspective. I even like to draw the lower legs like that because it kind of mimics the shape of that bone, but in a super simplified way. So that's Sam's advanced stick figure. And now when you're drawing that out three-dimensionally, that's the key. This is where it goes from stick figure to advanced, because you want to take those shapes. You drew the box for the hips, the box or egg shape for the head, and the egg shape for the rib cage. You want to be able to draw that in 3D. The whole key to drawing is drawing these things three-dimensionally. So if you guys have ever seen that kind of, what is it? It's like a flour bag or a bean for animation. It's a very common principle where they want you to animate just using those shapes, or when you're drawing characters to really think about it like that. That's kind of what I do. When I'm drawing out the rib cage and the hips, I'm like, all right, are they leaning forward? Is it like someone who's kind of hunched over? Maybe they're standing very proudly with their chest out, and there's kind of this shape where this is the rib cage. This is the, I'll zoom in case you guys can't see. This is the box. The head's up high, the arms back. And I think I said this, but for the shoulders, I draw a crossbar here, which represents the collarbones. And the trapezius muscles kind of go up from there. So it's kind of this triangle shape for that whole area that the head connects into. So I do that crossbar in perspective. It could be going like that, where the perspective's receding down like that. Or it could be the other way, where maybe they're holding something heavy. So they're leaning this way. They're holding like a hammer or something like that. So their other shoulder's kind of up. But either way, I kind of start with this base, and we talked about that rib cage. So that's kind of what it looks like in perspective. Being able to draw these things three-dimensionally.
And I've noticed that you are switching between tools. Are you using any special shortcuts for that? Any special keyboard shortcuts?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I don't know what tools I was switching between. I have
eraser and brush, like.
Yes. Yeah. So any tools you switch between frequently, it's definitely crucial to learn the hotkeys. So B and E, I switched to my brush, which is a hard brush, so I can carve into these shapes really easily, and then B for brush.
And also, if you'd like to erase using the same brush tip, I think there should be a shortcut for that, the tilde key, the grave accent. You can actually erase using that same brush tip you have as a brush, unless you are on an international keyboard, which doesn't work. And I think that's the timer for us. We have about 0 seconds left for chat and win.
Oh, cool.
So unless you want to close like this drawing, we could jump in.
Yeah, let's do it.
So let's jump into Chat and Win. For those of you who haven't joined us before, this is Chat and Win. One of you people will win 100 custom 3" by 3" sticker mule die cut stickers. Right, and to win those stickers, or to have a chance to win those stickers, you have to join us on Behance. So if you're watching this live on YouTube right now, please go over to behance.net/Adobe Live, and then you can join the chat and write a message in there. And I think we should ask them a question for Chat and Win. Do you have any special question in mind?
I should have prepared this.
I do have one if you don't.
Do it.
Okay, so I was asking, do you use keyboard shortcuts? Are those used for you, or are you one of those people who just uses the mouse for everything and and just clicks every single menu in there and uses no keyboard shortcuts? So let us know, do you use keyboard shortcuts? In the chat we will pick one winner right after this animation. Oops, sorry. That took a second there. All right, we are back. And let's just take a look at the chat to see what they are saying. Yes, I use shortcuts, as you should. Unless your name is Jason Levine, then you don't have to. Yes, 100%. Usually, yes. Command Z, yeah, that's a classic. Keyboard shortcuts for life. Yes. You are my people. Jordan, yes. All the time. Yes, always. Yay, frequently. Yes, yes, always. It's back. Yep. That's so great to see. That's so great to hear.
Who doesn't use Control Z?
Yeah,
You know,
right.
That's a
Who doesn't
classic.
use Command or Control Z for undoing? Terrible. But I do think we have a winner. Should we take a look at the chat? At the winner? Hang on. Just have to move over. I just have to enable it. Whoop. Jane A. Slaughter. Congratulations. I hope I've spelled your name right because I had to type it in real quickly. What it looks? Yeah, looks right. Okay.
Congrats.
So, and I can move that name a bit right here so it's not right on my face. Congratulations.
Perfect.
So you won 100 custom 3" by 3" die-cut stickers from Sticker Viewer. Adobe Live will be in contact with you later during the week to tell you everything there's to know, how you can claim your prize. But if you didn't win, that's fine, because we do have a special code for you. stickmeal.com/AdobeLive20 will get you 10 stickers for $1. I think free shipping in most countries. So you can just try out Sticker Meal, and if you like them, maybe you can order some more stickers from them. But congratulations to Janie, and everybody enjoy the code. All right.
Ooh,
that's
all the
it
stickers you
from-
can handle.
all the stickers you can handle, right? 10 stickers. It's really great to try out your logo. I wonder, how does my logo look on a sticker? There we go, $1. All right. And we do have portfolio reviews in about 1 hour. I will tell you everything there's to know in a moment. Oop, oh, that's the wrong screen, Tim. There we go. And back to you, Sam.
Yay. All right.
Yay.
Cool. So I just wanted to kind of cover those sort of stick figures, because this is honestly how I do a lot of stuff. If I'm if I'm doing different shapes, like I said, sometimes I'll block it out in silhouette, and sometimes I'll mix it up. I'll start out with this, and then I'll start giving him a costume. If I know what the silhouette is, maybe there's something that sticks off his shoulder, or he has some sort of elaborate headpiece of some kind. I like to do that, but it's really, the key is thinking in 3D shapes. So when I'm drawing these limbs, and I'm trying to imagine the posture he's in. And honestly, if you guys have trouble with this, gesture drawing is super helpful. Life drawing is super helpful, because that's essentially what I'm doing. I'm combining gesture drawing with a knowledge of the basic shapes of the human body, but specifically the basic shapes and structure of the skeleton. So it's very, crude, but it gets the idea across. So for these, if you have that knowledge, or, look up reference totally, because you need to know this, you have to kind of study those things, the skeleton and the body. But what I do past that is I really try to think about these in 3D shape. So where are his feet planted, for example? There's some perspective to that. Where are his shoulders? Maybe he's kind of like this. And I don't know, maybe he's scratching his head. So from there, you go like this. But here, the thing I like to think about is which direction are his limbs going in space, because we can't really tell. So if you're scratching your head, I do this all the time where I see how my own body poses. I'll stand up and take the pose. My upper arm is going out and forward in space, and this one's going back in space. So drawing, having that drawing those form lines and drawing a cylinder that essentially is kind of this deal. That's something you definitely want to keep in mind when you're doing these. So advanced stick figures, you do have to kind of think of the sticks in terms of cylinders. But once you got that, you know, if you get a good sense of where these things are going in space, you're going to be off to a really good basis for drawing. Because that's, and this leg would be, he's bent at the knee here. So this thigh would be coming towards us as a cylinder. So that's kind of my little overview for how I think of the figure when I draw it and how I do sort of stick figures. And we'll move on to the actual character that we're doing today.
All right, and if you missed any of this, you can watch the replay on behance.net/Adobe Live. You can just scroll down and you will see all the replays of all the streams we ever did. And then you can just watch some streams over there. And I do think we had one more questions. Yeah, is it a good idea to draw perspective guides while you draw your characters? Chris Lena.
Absolutely. I will say that in the past when I've drawn things, I've gotten too strict with like mapping out a grid, like very strict perspective. And then I think when you're drawing within that, you're trying to think of everything very technically and it limits your creativity and your ability to just draw. So what I like to do is just doodle, get my ideas out there, scribble it out, have fun with it, and then start correcting the perspective. Maybe, you know, put a grid out and make sure you're kind of on point or correct what's already in your idea, you know, just to make it perspectively correct. But for me, I tend to just put like little guides, like what's the foot point look like? What's it at his head? What's it at his shoulders, his hips? You know, I'll do something like that at most. So I just kind of keep it in the back of my head for the most part.
Cool.
So I guess I'll kind of give you guys the brief of what we're doing. I want to actually have an idea going into this character here. And I showed you that sort of bard character that we did, the guy with, you know, kind of a colorful costume. Today, I want to pretend we're doing some sort of brief for a client, that we actually have a prompt in front of us for this character, so I can show you how I think about it. But essentially, what I wanted to do was basically a fantasy shaman type character that has a bird theme to them. So they're going to have some sort of bird theme that unites their costume. You know, a lot of times you want to have a theme to a character or an idea that kind of gives it a cohesive unification of a design. So I thought we would do a sort of bird shaman, pretty open-ended, but you know, it could be fun.
Awesome. And just because I saw that question, do you use a graphics tablet to draw, Angela?
Yeah.
Asks.
Yeah, I use a Wacom Intuos.
Is that the one with a... No, that's not without the screen, right? That's just a tablet?
It's without the screen. I have a Cintiq 21 UX, which is a screen tablet, but it busted, it broke.
No.
I think a fuse, or not a fuse, a capacitor blew. So I gave it to my good friend who's like a tech genius, and he fixed it. He took out the blown capacitor and it's working now. But I've been using my backup tablet, which is just a Wacom Intuos. It's not even the Intuos Pro, but I honestly don't like it any less. Like it's weird. Like it's, you know, a fraction of the price of a Cintiq, but I enjoy them just as much. I'm in no rush to get my Cintiq back, but I do have an iPad which has the screen, which I love.
Right, you can plug in your iPad to your Mac or PC. That's right. And something just fell over, but I have no idea what it was. I hope it's nothing important. It's like random noises in your room. Like, is that important? Should I be worried? It's fine.
As long as you don't smell any fire or, you know, something like that.
It smells like bacon, but that's it. No. Tim, you mentioned something about the shortcut. What was it? Oh, right. Yes, you can switch between the current brush and the eraser using that same brush tip, using the tilde key on your keyboard. But be aware, if you're not in the US or if you're not using a US keyboard, you might not have access to that shortcut. But I think the team is working on that. I think Chad can let us know, but I think the team is working on that too. The flux capacitor blew. Yeah, that's right. Okay. And we do have about, because I'm not supposed to forget adding the timer. Boop. No, wait, boop, there we go. We do have about 15 minutes until you can submit your portfolio. Wait, in those 15 minutes you can submit your portfolio, and how you do that, it's very easy to do that. Just open the challenge, no, I'm getting it all wrong. Open the portfolio review tab right above the chat. There should be a link to Discord, and then you can join our Discord. Boop. And there is a portfolio review tab, this one, and you can just submit your Behance portfolio or your Adobe portfolio. Those two services are okay. It should have at least, let's say 3 to 2 projects at least. So more than that would be really great. And it should also focus on illustration. So yeah, if you have something like that, just submit it and we will take a look at that in about 50 minutes. Okay.
So this is probably a good time to mention one of my favorite tools in Photoshop, which is the warp tool, the warp function. I use it all the time. So if you have a drawing you like and you just want to tweak something a little bit, you want to move it around, especially when it's in the rough phase, like even pretty deep into the painting, I'll use the warp tool. I'll just lasso tool it. I have it key bound to F4. I just found that was a convenient hotkey for me, so I don't have to go up and select it every time.
That sounds like a dangerous shortcut key, especially if you're using the Alt key.
It's never happened, so
boop, and there you go.
So far, so good. But I'll hit that, and then if I want to like bring his arm down, I can do that. If I want to make it a little bit wider, I can do that. One thing I do it pretty frequently is I'll select the entire body, and a lot of times I like to get a good lean, like a good hip, chest forward type of lean. Now, if you do it too much, it will like skew it a bit, but it's not usually a big deal. I can just kind of redraw it like this.
And have you ever tried the puppet tool for that? Could be interesting.
I have. I think I need to get used to it a little bit better because it seems like a really powerful tool. But I think what I like about the warp tool is it's quick and messy. I just circle it, press it, and it's good to go. But I think if you want more precision, the puppet tool is awesome.
You don't always have to be precise when using Photoshop. You can just sometimes you just don't want to lay a mask. Sometimes you just want to use the eraser and move away those pixels. And there was a question in the chat about a shortcut for clipping masks. Should be Command Option G or Control Alt G, I believe. But you can look at that in your keyboard shortcuts in Photoshop. There's a menu where you can see and assign all of the shortcuts. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And what website do you use for polls? Polls? We do polls?
Polls? P-O-L-L?
P-O-L-S. Behance? I don't know what to try. Maybe you can explain what you mean. Okay.
So I forgot to show you guys this actually. The shaman sort of character. First, what I'm going to do is just kind of I'm going for a pretty standard pose here. We could spend all day exploring poses, ones that are more dynamic, but I just want to show one that will show off the design adequately. So I'm going to go with this pose, something very simple, standard. But this is an example of a reference collage that I might make for a project. Once I have my ideas down on paper, once I've sketched some stuff and I've gotten some stuff out of my head, it's good to pull reference if you kind of know what you're going for already. I don't like to do reference from the get-go because I don't like my ideas to be dictated by what I find on Google or any search engine. So I like to do it after I've gotten my ideas down and I kind of know what I'm going for. So shaman character, I really liked the design and colors of these these costumes. I thought these were kind of a cool influence that we may try to work into the design. These were very similar in some ways, but these kind of metal ornamentation I thought was really cool. And of course, we're going for a sort of bird theme. So we can do this, we can kind of test out different color schemes and different ideas because obviously all these birds have very different color schemes that will influence this design. I thought some of these
all black, but just black, nothing else, just black. You
could be the Raven King.
The Raven King. And Sachin, please, we can't answer all your shortcut questions right here. If we did that, the stream would be over. So if you don't know a shortcut, just go into Photoshop in the Edit menu, go to Keyboard Shortcuts, and then you have a list of all the available shortcuts. And I believe you can also search in there. And there's definitely a website for keyboard shortcuts. Maybe Gus, you can put that in the chat. Unfortunately, we can't answer all your shortcut questions. And any suggestions for free websites or for websites with good images? For reference images, definitely Adobe Stock. You don't even have to license it if you are just referencing it. But of course, if you want to use it, then you have to license it. And I believe you can get 10 free stock credits if you sign up for Adobe Stock. And also there are tons and tons of free websites out there which provide licensed images for free. Just look on the internet using your favorite search engine. I'm sure you'll find plenty of images. But just make sure, don't do one thing. Don't just copy-paste images from the internet and use them as is in your projects. Don't do that. All right. Yeah,
I'm a big fan of Pinterest too for reference images. Pinterest is just a rabbit hole that you can go down forever. And so I like to kind of compile little boards. I have an armor Pinterest. I have I think I have a costume one that like different non-armor sort of costumes from different points in history, different cultures. I think it's good to build a visual library for that kind of thing because you're going to have more to pull from when you're designing characters. You kind of need to, really fill your head full of those things and really be aware of what's out there historically and culturally. And it makes your designs, that much more kind of authentic. I did want to say, by the way, that these images, the top and bottom left ones, are from an photographer on Instagram named Jimmy Nelson. I did want to shout that out because he has a really cool Instagram and he travels the world, and I think his whole thing is photographing different indigenous peoples and documenting all that sort of stuff. So he has amazing photos that are really great for inspiration, I think.
And Maxime asks, is it okay to use a lot of layers? Are there any downsides of using millions? Okay, maybe not millions, but a lot of layers. Do you use layers? And if so, how many? Do you name them? Do you color them?
I used to be very structured with my layers. I used to do line drawing, mask, and then that mask would be my basis for the clipping mask. Everything I would clip to that mask, which would be the shape of the character. So I'd have clean lines, my mask, flat colors, shadow layer, light layer, which would be a multiply layer and a color dodge layer, respectively. And then I would have it very structured like that. I no longer work that way. It's a lot more free flow. I feel this suits my personality more. I'm much kind of happier just scribbling and being messy. But because of that, I do keep my layers pretty low. I merge them together. I like to keep the process so I can click through each layer and you can see it develop. So I keep that just for social media purposes or for my own purposes. But I tend to keep my layers like merged, and you can see here, this is just one layer. I'm not separating anything. I'm just kind of being messy with it.
Right. And of course, if you're like doing photo compositing, then you definitely should keep all your layers separate and maybe even use smart objects. The reason why Sam isn't using smart objects, at least not right now, is because you can't draw on smart objects, at least unless you double click the smart object, then you can draw on it.
And there's no real reason not to work non-destructively. The only reason I kind of do this is because I'm more or less mimicking the process of traditional media. Like you're just painting, it's all kind of one layer, and it's kind of a natural thing to do for how I work.
Okay.
So
I've got sucked into many Pinterest wormholes. Yeah, that's right, Chris.
Oh, yeah, it can be dangerous.
Michelle says, I'm a big fan of Jimmy Nelson. His book, Before They Pass Away, is full of beautiful photos. Well, that sounds awesome.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the photographer reference. Of course. And Eric, thank you very much for that question, but I don't think this is the right place for that. Maybe another time. Okay, maybe you can submit your portfolio for that. I think that would be the better idea. Okay.
All right. So here's the fun part where I'm going to move into actually putting down some color. And I have my idea. I have a basic idea for a silhouette. I want him to have long hair. That's what, a lot of these are like notes that I can see. But these are going to be feathers, maybe feathers coming off his gauntlets or wrist straps or whatever he has, maybe off the knees. But yeah, I think we can start blocking in color and continue to work up that silhouette, because I like to almost try to establish a color palette just by blocking colors in really roughly and seeing if that color scheme reads coherently, if it's unified. And while I'm doing that, I work up the design and silhouette. So we'll start that now. A new layer.
Chat, I'm going to put you on the spot there, Sam. Chat,
Yeah.
If you have any color suggestions which Sam should use, I think we could pick maybe one color for something. I don't know what. Maybe he has something, a piece of clothing which we can color in. So, chat, if you have one color suggestion, let us know. And Sam has to incorporate that color. I'm putting you on the spot there. Yeah.
When we get to, I'm gonna block in maybe a neutral blue or something. Mm-hmm. But when we get to the bird part of it, I think that would be really cool. I can show you guys some of these bird references we have, and we can go for a color scheme, because we got like blue, white, brown, and then there's like white, gray, lighter brown. There's some really cool ones from that reference I showed earlier, and I think we could probably have some fun with that.
Give us colors. Let us know.
Now, one thing I do is I kind of put down the knowns, and you're going to see me blocking these colors out really roughly, but certain colors I know what they're going to be. Maybe they have certain leather armor on them. So the leather is probably going to be, some kind of brown. So I'll know that. Maybe they say that the character in the brief that I'm given from the client, maybe they say that he has white hair. So I'll know, okay, I have to use white in that way. I kind of go off of what I know, block that in like I am. I'm just pretending that we'll just try blue and see what we think. But
speaking
the
of
others
colors, you are using not a white background as the default color of the canvas is. You're using a light gray background, as it looks like.
Correct.
Is there a reason for that?
White is too intense. It's an extreme. So when I have things contrasting, I want them to be more neutral. I want it to be closer to a mid-tone. This is still pretty bright, but I don't like the white. It's like trying to look at something with a blinding light behind it, almost, to me. It kind of blows it out and it's hard to see.
Donna, is that a color? I don't know that word. Maybe that's a color. I don't know. And no, Tunj, you don't have to give us RGB color codes. Just general names is fine. Like DE26AF. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, I know that one. That's my favorite.
That should be, I think that's a pink. I don't know. It should be magenta. Anyway. Okay, yeah. So keep them coming, those color suggestions.
Here's something I do a lot because I like working on one layer. I mean, two technically, if you count the background, is I want to warp this leg. I don't like this leg right now, but I like to keep my original sketch. So I just Control J to duplicate it. So now I have two layers with that same thing on it. And then I'll take these and I'll just merge these two layers together. So now I have all this on one layer. So this is kind of how I work my merging when someone was asking how many layers I tend to do. Because I want to move his stance out a little bit. With my trusty warp tool. So we got the blue in. That's fine. I was thinking it would be kind of cool to do some sort of fantasy skin. Maybe he's an elf of some kind. So I'm just gonna throw ideas out there. We'll put them down, and I'm gonna block them in. You're gonna see it's really, really rough and messy. So.
And actually, you are really on point with that color, because one of the suggestions was petrol blue and slate. I think that's also a shade of blue. And periwinkle blue.
Oh, all right. Yeah. There we go.
I think you're on track so far. And a lot of orange. I've seen a lot of orange. And
orange, okay.
burnt orange and midnight black. That's my suggestion. Magenta, orange, more orange, turquoise, magenta, yellow. So yeah, that's the general palette. So for now, we are on track.
That could definitely be good because we do have all this blue in this character right now. And that orange, that someone suggested could be a nice contrast. So I'm going to put white hair because I think white hair could look cool, but the background is already so white. So sometimes I'll have multiple backgrounds that I can flip between. So I'm going to try out a darker background while we do this.
And you always keep one color as a background, no textures, no paper texture, no backgrounds?
Not usually. I do like throwing a gradient on later if it's getting more towards like presentation purposes, if I'm showing off the rough sketch, even when it's not finished, just to have something a little bit more interesting. But maybe at the end in presentation, I mean, there's plenty of times where I do a painting and I block in the background. I do all sorts of colors like a sunset or something like that. But that's a different purpose. That's to do like a fun, cool painting rather than design. The intention behind that is different.
Right. More of Lizard Man, no? Okay, yeah, Dark Elf, sure. Always great to paint.
Something like that. So originally, I think is, I sometimes have to reference my own sketches. Yeah, he's kind of looking to the side. That's what that little center line indicates. So we'll kind of have him looking that way. Get some hair on him, see how it looks. And again, the whole point of this is silhouette and color palette. So it's like a painter who's doing a landscape, just kind of blocking in all the rough colors, very loosely, very abstractly to establish, a color palette and see if it works. That's kind of what I'm doing here.
And because if you start painting and rendering the drawing and at the final point you notice, oops, or the client says, that blue, I don't like that. And if you just show them this, then they can already have an image in their mind and can say, yeah, okay, I like that. And and at this point you can still change most of the colors, the structure, the pose of the character, which I imagine is much more difficult to fix if you have already rendered every single detail, because if you have some fine details and you do use the warp tool, then you can lose some of those details. Very fine texture, perhaps. But I
was just going to say my whole thing, and this is developed over years and years, what I'm continually trying to get closer to with my work is the ability to envision an idea as loosely as possible, as quickly as possible, and see if I like it and see if it works. Because I've had times where I do each step really individually, which that's not to say that's not a valid process, because it completely is, but you got to find kind of what makes sense to you. And what I try to do is get the entire impression for this character as soon as possible. So I know, like, you know what? I hate the pose, or I hate the color scheme, or I really don't like this or that about it. If you can get that overall impression really early, it really helps you, get a better finished piece.
And we do have about 30 minutes left to submit your portfolio. If you don't know what I'm talking about, open the portfolio review tab on behance.net/Adobe Live. And there you will find everything there is to know about the portfolio review. 30 minutes, everybody.
Cool. So I guess that's like 30 minutes overall for this painting, or is there going to be any time afterwards?
I think we'd maybe have like a few minutes after the review, but about 30 minutes for the painting, unless I did something wrong. I don't think so. Hang on.
Okay.
No, it should be right. 30 minutes. Yeah, time flies. Like 2 hours. That's a lot. And then boom.
Yeah, it disappears. So we'll try to block in all the colors, and then I want to show you guys what I do with the multiply layer and color dodge layer, because that would have been a good question for chat one, because those are my two favorite layers by far, multiply and color dodge. And yeah, exactly.
And I have rediscovered some of the blend modes, where earlier I just thought, what are those? They look awful, like color dodge or color burn, like ugh. But if you actually know how to use them, you can achieve some really great lighting effects with them. And I think we will talk about that in a moment, once we're at that stage. So do you think about lighting at this stage? I noticed you drew some shadows right below the chin, for example. It looks like, but
I kind of have
yeah.
I kind of have standard go-tos. I'll do some fairly general lighting, but I like to establish it a little bit later. I'll actually, in that step with the color dodge and multiply, that's kind of what we do. For this type of thing, I like to do a fairly general lighting, just because it's showing off a design. So I'm not necessarily trying to convey any sort of emotion or feeling as you would with an illustration. So an illustration, you're trying to think of like a movie shot. What emotion are you trying to convey? What lighting, what camera angle, like what feeling are you trying to get? For concept art and character design, it's mostly just communicating the idea of a design.
And yes, it has to be a Behance or a Adobe portfolio to submit. Those are the two options you have. And if you don't have a Behance portfolio, perhaps now would be the time to create one, because you're probably at home, so maybe you have the time. Just get some your work, some of your old work, maybe some of your current work. Throw a portfolio together. Behance is actually a great place for like new clients and other employers to discover you. So I've talked to some artists which actually got their main job and most of their work through Behance. So yeah, get a portfolio. It's free.
Yeah, it's I actually updated mine last night to make sure I had
Very nice.
My most current work for you guys, so you can see it, so you can actually see what I've been doing lately. And man, updating on Behance it's one of the most convenient portfolio sites I think I've used. So it really is like pretty quick and easy to get it up.
And of course, if you don't like the look of Behance, you can use Adobe Portfolio, which automatically links to your Behance, and then you can just import all of your projects and put them on a really nice looking site. This looks great. So you can give your own touch. And how are you going to choose the colors for dodging, I suppose? Dodging and burning? Or drawing?
For color dodge?
It says dogging. I'm not sure what maybe dodging. We'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah, so that's definitely something I want to go into, because I think a big thing with color and making it look realistic or pleasing is having a variety of hues. When you have a light source, typically the temperature of the highlight is going to be different than the temperature of the shadow. So if it's a warm light, rule of thumb is it's a warm highlight, cool shadow. If it's a cool light, it's going to be cool highlight, warm shadow. So I use multiply layer and the color dodge to communicate that. I make sure the temperature of my shadow, which is the multiply layer, is a certain hue, and I make sure that the color that I'm using for color dodge is a certain hue, whether I want them warm or cold, depending on the light source.
And by warm and cold, you mean like warm is more on the orange and red and yellow side, and cool is more on the blue-ish side.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of the difference between sunlight and moonlight, put simply.
And that's really something a lot of people just don't notice, because if you're going outside and you're just looking around you, everything looks normal. And then when you're inside, maybe you have your incandescent light bulbs, which you shouldn't do, but if you still have them, like those really warm colors, still everything looks normal, because your eye is automatically adjusting to all those different color temperatures. But if you take a camera and take a photo of indoors and outdoors at the same time, you usually see how much cooler and colder the outside is, like really blue colors because of the blue sky and the sun. And the inside is usually, unless you're using fluorescent lights or LED lights, one of the older lights, which are really cold, the inside is usually a bit warmer. And the same thing applies to shadows and highlights of your character. So I suppose you use, I don't know, it depends. You can use colder shadows and warmer highlights, but what are you using? What do you use? My God.
What do I use personally?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it all just depends situationally on the the light source. Typically I do like a lot of warm lighting, cool shadow, but it really depends on the environment that the character's in or the situation I'm going for.
Oh, right, yeah. I was assuming like, oh, he's sitting on a nice park bench on a summer's day, but then I forgot, hey, he could be on a top of a volcano or like in the deepest and darkest shadows of a labyrinth. I don't know. Perhaps.
Yeah, and I mean, I definitely do warm lights the vast majority of the time, but I think there's situations where you want something cool that gives it a different sort of feel.
Absolutely.
So I think one thing that I want to mention about colors is I think people sometimes, if they're new to color, they haven't really done it a lot. Choosing a color scheme is really overwhelming because there's just limitless possibilities. So what I try to do is essentially start with one. In this case, the dominant color was blue. You can see it's covering all of his torso. Even his skin tone's kind of a different tone here, or a different bluish. It's a lot more green. So this is kind of how I'm trying to picture my color scheme. The majority of it is this blue, then there's a little bit like secondarily is this. So I start with one main color, I work a secondary, and then I'll find a tertiary. So in this case, there's a lot of brown. This could be the secondary color, it could be the tertiary. It's kind of sharing space with the skin tone. Then there's usually accent colors that come in. Tertiary, and then so on and so forth, where I try to use them less and less, but I'll do a lot of these like goldish copper accents, and you can kind of see the overall color palette. But I think now could be a fun time to maybe vote on some colors we want to go, because I got all my neutrals in, my blue, my browns. None of these are too extreme, but let's see. When we go into the birds here, that's where I think it can get colorful. Now we have this macaw, which is red, yellow, blue, could be really cool. This owl is a lot more neutral with kind of light browns and oranges and whites. It's all kind of that warm neutral. I don't know, what do you think would be the best way to pick these, Tim, or to get suggestions?
I would say...
like which bird should we go with?
Right. You know what? Can you just import that image or take a screenshot and import it in Photoshop and just put like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then they can just write the numbers in the chat.
Oh,
maybe that's the best idea.
That's brilliant. Yes, let's do that.
I should work for Adobe. Okay.
Tim with the solutions.
Yeah. And I do have a great tip about color. When we are working on the lighting, then I can share something really cool with you. Because I've noticed some people do have trouble mixing lights and lighting colors. Colors can tend to look a bit muddy if you don't do it right. And by right, I mean there are a million different ways to do work in Photoshop, but I do have some cool ones. All right. So maybe we can just put like 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on.
Yeah, I'll block this out here so it's not confused. So we're going to try to use the feathers of the birds that you guys think would be interesting. We can try more than one. So I'll do 1. Hopefully you guys can see this. 2.
You know what? I'll get a straw poll in so we can actually count those votes.
And most of these birds seem to have like 3 colors or so we can use. So whatever you think would be fun. I can actually put this up
vote like
on the
between
side.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, then I can prepare a vote. Just 1. No, thank you.
Hopefully everyone can see that.
3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, then I can create that and I will share that in the chat so you can actually vote on that, because we can't possibly count all the submissions in the chat. So please vote here.
I'll just start on one now, and then we'll see what chat says. I'll try this macaw one off the bat.
Okay. No, that's not the right one. Hang on. My Chrome. Okay, there we go. Now, no, please don't vote in the chat. We can't count those votes. Please vote on the straw poll I posted. No.
Oh yeah. If you guys see the straw poll, yeah.
I do see a lot of force though in the chat. Like use the force, Luke.
Okay, I see that too. Yeah, 4.
Please.
Wow, some 5s.
We want to be fair for everybody, so nobody can vote twice. Okay, I will also cast my vote, and I think I will use, all right, this one. And okay, I think, yeah, 4 is definitely winning with 71%.
Oh, wow.
Close one after that is directly number 1 with only 10%. So I think, yeah, that's also the one I voted for, number 4.
Number 4, that's the winner?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So you can kind of see what I'm going for. Like, I'm imagining that he has feathers on certain parts. I like to repeat design elements throughout a character design. I think that's fairly common design principle in general. If you have a certain motif somewhere in the design, it's good to repeat those elements or colors throughout. So you'll kind of see me doing that, going through, fitting those feathers into the legs, arms, shoulders. And yeah, so there's an example, but everyone, you said 4 was the winner?
Yep, 4.
What was second
and you
place?
Can
you said it was
incorporate
1?
a bit of 1 if you like, because that was second place.
Interesting. Okay, cool. It'd be kind of fun to do like all of them. Some, you know, if
Honestly,
I had a million hours.
I was expecting number 1 to win because it has the most colors and the most vibrant colors. But I do like 4. It has a more defined color scheme. Pretty cool.
Yeah, so let's do color 4. I'll make that note for myself. So taking those off, and we'll block that in. So again, it's all about color swatches for me. I'm really trying to nail down very loosely and abstractly almost what those colors are. And I don't need to pick it exactly, but trying to get the feeling for that. So
the poll does change a bit. Now it's 67%, but poll's closed. We have made a decision collectively. And how many years of experience do you have, Sam?
I've been drawing for about 10 years.
Non-stop.
Pretty dedicatedly, yeah, I guess. I never sleep, you know?
Yeah, that's right. I also don't sleep, which you can see right here, back under my eyes, which luckily get somewhat removed by the lighting. And Jan Erik says, colorful is not always the best. Yeah, that's right. Sometimes you just don't want every single color in the rainbow, unless you're drawing a rainbow. And even then, you maybe don't want the pure colors of the rainbow, because rainbows often don't look like that. They're much more muted. So, yeah, colorful, sometimes great, but for more realistic drawings, perhaps not.
Now, I think on number 4, is that a little, we should probably, I guess, zoom into number 4. Is that a little white tail? Is that what it is? Kind of looks like he's got a little, yeah, so I could maybe put an accent of white somewhere, but I noticed this warm color over here. It's kind of a brownish tone like that.
And you just sample that color using the eyedropper, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes I honestly don't like the color pick. I like to give myself the challenge of like, what is that color? Finding it. But,
and sometimes it can be really hard to pick the exact color because of the color noise. I do think you can set the eyedropper to pick like a 3 pixel by 3 pixel average color. You can set that somewhere because some images are just way too noisy to pick like a consistent color. So that could be one option. So we got to go. Thank you, Michelle, for watching. Thank you so much. I hope you will be back for tomorrow, because we will be back tomorrow. Same time, same place. We do have an entire schedule for tomorrow. Just briefly, pause the stream for a second. I don't want to take away from Sam's screen time. We do have an entire schedule for tomorrow. Same time, same place. Be back. Okay. Back to you.
So I see the way it kind of feeds out, I mean, at least the flow from the head through the wing, it's kind of this blue, green, blue, kind of this deep blue. Let's see if we can try something like that. A little bit of green.
And
the most like
do keep sharing your portfolios.
At the end.
That's right. Thank you, Adobe Live. Keep sharing your portfolios. Our team behind the scenes, our team behind the scenes will pick a portfolio, 2 portfolios actually, and we will take a look at them in 15 minutes. So, and is there an international / standard thumb rule for color and contrast picking? Color picking, contrast, and colors? No. As long as it looks good to your eye, that's fine. You can use, however, tools for that. There are tools like Adobe Color, which you can use, and it can help you to pick some colors which do harmonize together. And just go to color.adobe.com to pick those colors. And just a reminder, because I do see a lot of questions in the YouTube chat, if you're watching this on YouTube, come on over to behance.net/Adobe Live. That's the chat we are reading. So yeah, behance.net/Adobe Live. All right.
Oh, and a quick tip. I should mention this. You guys may see me glancing to the left. One, I can see chat there. But two, I have another version of this character on my other monitor. I like to have like a thumbnail version in case I start zooming in. But what you do to do that is if you go to Window, Arrange, you can go down to the bottom here and it'll say New Window. I haven't saved this document yet, so it just says Untitled. But Window, Arrange, New, and it'll pop out another window up here that you can clip off. If you have just a single monitor, you can drag it off and you can have it zoomed out here. So if you zoom in and you're working on the face and you're making changes, you'll see it appears there. And you can even draw on this little one and it appears on the big one.
So cool.
It's nice to have that, as another option on your other monitor or even on the same one. Speaking of, I should mention one of my favorite things in Photoshop is the ability to check my grayscale really quickly. So you haven't seen me do that, but a lot of times what you want to do is kind of see the values of everything, because the values are the most important. Color can really skew what you're seeing. It can be kind of overwhelming with a lot of contrast, but the key to making a character readable is having sufficient value. So a lot of the time I'll even be painting in this mode, but you can see on my right window that I'm actually painting in color. And when I'm color picking off my canvas, you can see from there that I'm actually color picking real colors.
But Sam, how do you set that up? That sounds amazing. Tell us more.
Well, Tim, I'm glad you asked.
You're welcome.
So it's perfect to have this window as my grayscale checker on my other monitor. And that's what I love to do. And to do that, it's very simple. If you guys have Photoshop open, I can show you right now.
10 easy steps.
You go to View, Proof Setup at the very top, View Proof Setup, go to Custom. And then you'll see the device to simulate is working gray .gain 20%. Or you won't see that, but you can select that from this crazy large menu. So you select working gray .gain 20%, click OK, it'll be grayscale now. Now what you do is press Control Y, and you can flip that back and forth all day. You can paint in grayscale mode, you can color pick, and you'll never actually be picking gray tones because it's just the display that's changing. It's not the actual pixels.
Wow, that's so easy. Thank you very much, Sam. And you can also, by the way, if you want to simulate color blindness, there are also settings for that. So if you're designing for colorblind people, or maybe if you have an audience where some people are colorblind, that's a great way to check if your design works, because some colors can't be seen by some people. So, and wow, okay, is this an everyday thing? What do you mean? The streams? Yes, we're live Monday through Friday every week of every year until forever. But portfolio reviews usually every Monday. Usually. And tomorrow we will review challenge submissions. Does this work for photography also? Yes, this also works for photography and compositing. Just import your image, apply the mode, and you're all set. Try it today. Okay.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's a very, very useful tip.
Absolutely.
Now I'm going to merge these layers down again, the new color I'm doing. And I have oh no, I don't have the old version. Silly me. Let's actually undo that. I like to keep a duplicate. So Control J. Now I have this version of it saved. So I can merge this version together and do what I want. So it's kind of my weird way of quote unquote working non-destructively. I'll have at least a backup, but it's not, non-destructive proper.
And if you ever like to go back, you can also use the history panel and you can save snapshots. So you can go back to multiple stages of your work. Maybe if your client likes something from earlier during the session, you can just go back and you can take snapshots and you can name those snapshots, which is really great if you want to compare different snapshots. Yeah, so use the history panel. It's really great. And any type of web design which is important. Yeah, absolutely. For color blindness. Exactly, Jennifer. Yep. And not just today. It depends every time. Okay, sorry. That was not for us. Hello, everybody. Hi, Felicia. Great to see you. Okay. We do have about 10 minutes left. Sorry. We do have about 10 minutes or 9 minutes left to until portfolio review. So this is your chance. Go to Discord, submit your work, and we will take a look at it in about 9 minutes. Okay.
Ooh. So I do like that little hint of that kind of warm. I mean, to me, in the context of these colors on this bird, it kind of almost looks orange yellow. And some of these feathers get on the borderline of like a green yellow. So experimenting around with the idea of this sort of yellow tone here and something a little warmer. We'll see how that looks. Oh, and I should mention the whole reason I work the way I do, where I do like one layer and it's not all preserving everything in a non-destructive way. I mean, one, like Tim said, with, painting, it's not so practical to have smart objects or anything like that. But it was actually a very heavily a psychological reason I paint the way I do. When I first started, I feel like I was very, I very much had, a strong sense of or case of perfectionism. Everything I did, I was overthinking and I was really afraid to mess things up. And I was always in my head so much that it kind of made painting not super fun. I feel like I spent much longer on things than I needed to. And as time's gone on, I've kind of purposely developed a way of working that works in a way where I'm not afraid to mess up. I'm open to making mistakes. I'm doing everything very roughly and loosely just because it helps break that perfectionism within me. I'm actively fighting against it. And I think that's been a large reason that I paint the way I do.
And I think you do know that what question is coming, the classic question, which I see every single time in the chat. How long do you take, how long does it take to draw one of those characters from start to finish? Can you put a number on that? Or is it different for every character?
Yes, it is very different. I typically would not be able to tell you, but I've been very much trying to be more diligent about timing myself, knowing how long I take, because when you're quoting clients a price, you kind of have to know how long you're going to take or have a good way to estimate it. Now, when I worked on this piece right here, oh my gosh, it completely got away from me.
Okay.
I spent so long on it that, everything, wow. I kind of realized, all right, I need to set deadlines and I need to time this so I know better. Of course, with an illustration that big, it's much harder to say because it takes so much longer. These characters here, I think I'm going to try to remember, I have it documented on a task timer, which is a Chrome extension. I want to say 9 hours from left to right, 9 hours, 5 or 6 for the wizard, maybe 6 for the bard, and then the cleric on the right was 7 or 8. The first and last character took a little longer because I tried a new method, which didn't pan out, so it ate up some time. But I would say they're all on average 6-7 hours at this level into it.
All right, so the rest of the day is just Sam Peterson designing and drawing. All right, 9 a.m. Sam Peterson, 12 p.m. Sam Peterson. Okay, and obviously we won't do the entire process during this stream. We don't have 9 hours. Maybe we can do that later. Just do a 24-hour Adobe live stream non-stop, like the CancelCon. Have you seen that one? Have CancelCon?
I've heard about it.
This weekend, a really great conference. Online conference.
Okay.
Hosted by
I've heard about it, but I don't know much about it.
You should definitely watch the replay. Val also was a guest, and Gus, and many other different other people. And do you have? Oh, yeah, right. Do you have something in the background, like a movie, a show, or music for inspiration? Jennifer asks.
Music, absolutely. I learned long time ago that I cannot watch anything. If it's a visual, even if it's like a stream, I have to have it like minimized and just listen to it and maybe pop up to see what they're doing every now and then. But if it's anything visual, I won't get any work done. But music all the time, constantly, yes. So at this point, I'm really just designing with shape. I'm trying to think of little bits of his ornamentation and costume, and I'm trying to do it just in color and shape, and I really enjoy working that way. But before, I think we're doing portfolios in like 5 minutes, right?
In about 4 minutes, yeah.
Okay.
We don't have to start right away, but yeah.
I think this would be a good time to show you what I like to do with value and using the multiply and color dodge layer before. And we'll continue this tomorrow, but I think it would be a good last little thing to do before we have to go. So from here, you can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm using this different color, this palette that we established, maybe a little accent of white hanging from these pieces of fabric, maybe even the tips of here. He has white hair, so it'd be kind of cool to repeat that. I'm actually even thinking about giving him a beard, maybe. We can try that real quick. Make a beard layer. And as you can see, I'll do these really loosely and really roughly. It's just to get the impression of what the character might look like with a beard. Now we'll probably end up working on his face a lot tomorrow because it looks like a potato, I'd say right now. That's not the goal. So it is the focal point. So we'll work it up. His beard looks silly, but we'll get that later. So real quick, the lighting, color dodge and multiply. So I like to establish my lighting. Sometimes, I don't always do this. Sometimes I just paint it directly and I'll choose my tones. But this is such a great way. You can think of what I've done so far as flat colors. I know there's a little bit of value variation, but for me, I'm just swatching down color ideas. I'm not really thinking so much about the shadow and the light. I'm just trying to get something that looks passable. So at this point, it's fun to start thinking about lighting. What I like to choose for my shadows with a multiply layer, that's my shadow layer I always use, I do a sort of pinkish color, very, very desaturated. So I go just above blue into the warmer tones with a bit of red in it. The reason I do that is often because of skin tones. If you use a really muddy color for skin tones, they look kind of dead, but skin has a bit of blood in it, has a bit of warmth in it typically. And I find that a cool color usually looks good. You can scribble it down, make sure it looks good on all your colors, and I think that looks pretty decent. So let's go with that. So
isn't the sketch really small for details to be worked on? We are not really working on details at the moment, I believe. So
that's another method of combating my perfectionism is staying zoomed out.
Zoom in.
Yeah, it's just looking at the whole impression. I don't care about details now.
That's something really interesting I saw when I watched some real painters paint, because obviously they can't zoom out. Some of them, especially if you're drawing like really big paintings, they have a brush which is like super long, 3 feet long brushes they have, just so they can get away from the image. And they're sitting there like, oh, okay, drawing this, drawing that. And this is sort of the equivalent of having a huge brush so you can stay away from your artwork and not zoom right into pixel level. Because if you do that, at this stage at least, then you will spend months, maybe even more.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say if I had one tip, and this is a very personal thing, it could just be me, but I think a lot of people would benefit from this. If I had one tip that I could, go back and give myself, or say that was easily the most influential tip ever, and I have to keep reminding myself constantly, even to this day, is staying zoomed out solves so many problems for me. It's faster. My results are better. I enjoy it more. It's not like tedious. Nothing I do is ever tedious. It all feels fun now when I'm zoomed out because I'm just doing big, loose things and really thinking about the big idea. Where it starts becoming tedious is where I have to spend like an hour cleaning up a mask or an hour, fixing an eye. It's
Yeah.
all, so it's faster, it's more fun, the results are better. Whenever I zoom out, I have better results. It's just,
But could you just, for some people, because I know some of you are watching this on your phone, could you just zoom in for 1 second so we can actually see the level of detail you're working on?
Absolutely. You can see how messy and loose it is at this point.
All right. So just so they know how it actually looks. But still looks, I mean, that's an art style. And that's about time for our portfolio reviews. I think you can just finish what you're doing in a second. I will pull up everything we have to. Take about a minute, so you could just keep working.
Did you say we may have a few minutes afterwards?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Like
if we have a few
4,
afterwards.
5 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I would need. Perfect.
All right.
So this is the multiply layer, and when we come back, I'll show you all the color dodge layer, which this is the shadows I'm putting in. You can kind of see it's adding a little bit of definition if we go into grayscale. It's adding a little bit more form, a little bit more value range. And importantly, it's cooling down my shadows. I'm going to be going for a warm light, but in this instance, where my shadows are, it's going to be cooler. So Tim, cut me off at any time when we're going to jump in.
We're ready, if you like.
We're ready? Perfect. All right, we'll come back to the color dodge very briefly afterwards. And of course, we'll continue this all tomorrow as well.
Absolutely. All right, so this is now the time for the portfolio. Reviews, we will have to go to space, actually. And we will be, hopefully, if all works out, because I do have to switch some scenes and do some voodoo magic. And if everything works out fine, then we should see an intro right about now. And we're back. No, wait, that's the wrong screen. I knew it. All right, now we're in space. Ooh, look at those realistic helmets, which are totally on our head right now. And like
they're saving our lives.
Yeah, like, wait, okay. Yeah, see? Okay, so we are in space right now, and we will review, 2 portfolios today. And the first one, should we go to your screen? Do you have them? No, you have them. Okay, we will go to my screen. That's fine. Okay. The first one, Maria Lopez Creative. Congratulations. And I think I will take those helmets off because they are really blocking the screen. Oh, boop. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at your work while Sam pulls it up. Okay, there he is. I think we can go to your screen because you should do most of the reviewing because you're the artist. And I'm just the host.
Okie dokie.
Right. So before we get into the projects, maybe we can look at the left side of the portfolio, which appears to be in Spanish. That's too bad. Is it a translation? Oh, it goes on. No, that doesn't seem to be translation.
I see.
So unfortunately, we can't say anything about it. Looks like you are describing your name, your interests, your skills. My Spanish is super rusty, so I thought it...
a little bit of the biography down, which is good.
Perhaps, already that's one point, perhaps you can do that in English, because I think a really big audience, an international audience, does understand English. Spanish is also great, but for example, I don't speak Spanish, so unfortunately we can't say anything about that at the moment. But it's great that you actually wrote something in there. It's always great to see like a bit about you, where you're coming from, what are your interests. Maybe that's already a bit too long. Perhaps you can keep it a bit shorter, just nice and brief. Who are you? What do you like? Yeah, it goes on.
Oh yeah. I think if you could keep it just like a paragraph or two, to really sum it up, that would probably be pretty good. It does seem quite lengthy, but having a Spanish and English version would be a really good idea too.
All right. And the rest, like I like that you have added your social links like Instagram and Facebook, it looks like, and also a link to your website. It's really important in case your client wants to contact you. They can either send you a message or just go to the social links. It's right there. And okay, so I just look at the chat if anybody has a question. Spain has a big community too. That's right, but you would be missing out if you don't have two languages in there. All right, so let's look at the portfolio. Some projects. So the first one.
Yeah, it looks like it's a Zelda piece, Link to the Past.
Nice.
It's a classic. I loved Link to the Past on Super Nintendo way back when. That was a memorable game. This is really cool. I mean, one thing I notice off the bat about your whole portfolio is you have a pretty consistent style to it. You have a pretty consistent look, and I think it's great to try different styles and all these things when you're learning. But like when people are really trying to hone a portfolio for a job or for some sort of freelance work or anything like that, I think this sort of cohesive look is a really good thing. Because when I look at your portfolio or when anyone sees this, they know what it's about. They know what to expect. They know kind of what you like to do.
If you have like way too many art styles and projects, maybe you also do some photography, maybe you do some UX UI design. Maybe that would be a time where you can have different portfolios, or if you're using Adobe Portfolio, you can actually add categories. So you can have like photography and drawing and painting. So if any future clients come upon your portfolio, they know exactly what they would expect from you if they were to hire you. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
So, so you have opened the second project, the Phono Fantasy?
Yeah. I'm just trying to get kind of a good feel for this. I love the texture you have going on in this stuff, like the fur. That's super cool. I like how you have that kind of mirrored throughout the texture in the rest of the piece here.
And what do you think about the presentation? Like, it's one thing to create beautiful art, but if you don't know how to present it, so maybe you can say something about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good that you have these pieces separated here. It really lets them kind of stand on their own as a design. And I was saying I really like the cohesiveness behind the texture and the kind of whimsical lines you have. The only thing I would say here is, I'm always thinking about visual hierarchy and focal point and that kind of thing. A lot of this is very evenly contrasted, evenly lit. Even the element on the left with these three sort of fairy creatures and the character on the right, it's about the same size visually. So just something to think about in pieces is having a primary read, a secondary read, and a tertiary read. Everything's very evenly lit. Everything is kind of evenly textured, and it's like the same size. So I think this is an awesome piece, but just something to think about, like where you really want the eye to go first.
So add some maybe more dramatic lighting. This is a forest scene, so maybe just the sun poking through the leaves of the trees. That could be a great way to focus the viewer's attention on one or the other object. And also one thing I've noticed, maybe you can add some text, a description, just a brief 2 lines of text. Maybe, hey, this is, I don't know, for a client. I'm not sure where that Instagram link is pointing. Perhaps that's an explanation. I'll open that. But just a brief explanation for those of you who don't know what the project is for. Is it a personal project? Is it for a client? For a website? For print? Just something so we know what this is for. That would be great.
I like the depth you got with the values, though. Like this background, how it kind of sinks back. That adds a lot of nice depth. And that was something I was kind of thinking about this. I think this has a really solid style. I was wondering if you could kind of use contrast in that way to push this a bit more. So everything's kind of evenly lit. It's kind of evenly contrasted. I think if you put a little bit more contrast maybe near the eyes of the characters, or even a gradient to kind of shift the lighter tones to be up near their upper bodies, like making everything else a little bit more toned down value-wise, a little bit, I don't want to say darker like it's going to be dark, but keep the brightest sprites for the faces and the areas you want the eye to go. I don't think you'd have to do it too dramatically here, just kind of subtle changes. But I think using contrast in that way to really draw the eye where you want would be a good idea. And one small thing I notice here is the shield kind of has, it looks like you used a hard round brush. It seems inconsistent with the rest of it. I think you were kind of going for that metal sheen, but I think some sort of texture or like a gradient that's a bit more blended may fit in with the rest of the look a little bit more cohesively.
All right, so let's just look at one more project from this portfolio.
Okay.
So, which one do you like?
Let me click on them all real quick, see what we got. I think you're doing a really nice job with style, like consistency in all of these. I think I
just don't want to scroll through them like, oh, nice, 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 and that's it. No, I would rather focus on one project.
Yeah, so what I noticed with this project and the second one I clicked on is you have a really good visual consistency, like the way you're doing this hair. It's a very clear stylistic choice, but you can kind of see that repeated throughout the other characters' hairs through some of these designs. I think that's really good, having that consistency. I like the presentation on these too. They're all kind of, you know, they have the circle, they have the solid background color, they have a nice contrasting color. I think this orange and blue is awesome. That's a great contrast. It looks like you put some thought into that with the yellow, the blue. They're all pretty strong contrasts. So I think that looks really good.
And also just the basic things like that go with a yellow background. Some strands of hair are just poking through the circle. So I think that's just something like to break the rules. I know you have a circle behind you, but perhaps just some elements could poke through that circle. I think that's a really great idea.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Like her hair kind of breaks it here, but if some of these straw pieces broke it on this one, and then maybe his little hat. Yeah, the hat too. Yeah, I think that would. I like how you did it on this one. I think it would add depth in the others, but these are really nice.
So well done. Thank you very much for submitting your portfolio, and thank you very much for your courage. I know it takes courage to submit, so thank you very much. And we do have. Okay, let's jump to the second portfolio because we want to give them as much time as we did for this one.
Sounds good.
And this one is by Marina the Cricket, illustrator freelancer from London, UK. By the way, we do have streams from the UK and Germany earlier today, so if you like that, every day, join in, tune in. Okay, so let's again take a look at the left side first. I am a tiny illustrator with 3 pair of hands, always ready to doodle. The thing I like most is daydreaming and drawing about things that are in my mind. Enjoy. See? So nice. Just we get to know you a bit, we get to know who you are, and that's just adds so much more personality to this to this great portfolio. Okay, so perhaps maybe you can put in some of your social links if you have any where people could find you. That would be one thing to improve. And yeah, I think we should take a look at a few projects. Do you have any? Perhaps we can also talk a bit about the thumbnails of the projects. What do you think about them? Are they engaging? Do you like them? Are they cohesive?
I think they are. They seem to be cropped nicely. I'll have to I can see that this is a chair, but okay. Like this one, it may be nicer to see more of the chair. It's almost to the point where it's like abstract. Like, what is that? But I think these are all pretty nicely cropped. You got a good, tight crop on the subject. It shows it's a nice color palette. Like as you scroll through, there's that consistency that I was saying in that other portfolio that I think is really nice. Like you definitely have a style that I can kind of tell what you're about and what you like just by scrolling through. There's a lot of detail work in the lines, a lot of texture in your lines, consistent throughout a lot of this, which is nice. So I think these read pretty well.
All right, so let's pick a project.
Yeah,
let's take a look.
That's cool.
Wow, nice. Yeah, that's a clear illustration drawing style with those black lines and those wavy inner lines.
Yeah.
Really great.
The books have that wavy look, so does the couch.
Again, I'm wondering, what is this for? Is this like a children's book illustration? I'd love to know. Perhaps you can also put a few lines in there like, hey, this is my work for an illustration for a children's book, or this is just some personal work. So we know. And maybe also the tools you used. I do see Photoshop in there. Yeah, Photoshop. Okay.
Yeah, as someone who's just kind of clicking on your portfolio and checking it out, this seems like it's for something. It seems like it has a specific purpose, but it would be nice if I could,
Yeah.
like Tim said, if I could read that and find out, like, is this for a children's book or is this
Or perhaps
something else?
show some mock-ups if you have any. Like if this is indeed for an illustration, not for an illustration, for a children's book, perhaps you can put in a photo of that children's book or a mock-up of that book, just so we know how it looks. And if you like, I know that can be a bit daunting to do, you can post your work in progress work, maybe below the sketches, so we can see how did this project come together. Where did you start?
Yeah.
I think that's already fascinating to see some work in progress sketches.
Definitely. Yeah, one thing I noticed about your work, which is kind of cool, is it almost reminds me of like some 90s cartoons I watched. Like I did Nickelodeon specifically, with a lot of the descriptive lines, that it kind of somehow reminds me of some of those shows. Like a lot of the texture. Now, this is a super minor thought. I like how you have that consistency with your line. You kind of have these wavy lines, which is consistent throughout the design, which I think, makes it read all very cohesively. But you seem to have the most texture in the objects that aren't as important. Now, I think the shell is really cool because that's a big part of this design. But like the straps of the backpack, it seems like maybe getting a little bit more of that texture around the eyes or the face, some of those key elements where you kind of want the viewer to look first, using texture in that way to create contrast and a focal point could be really interesting around the eyes and such as well. But
and
yeah,
you did a very similar thing with the cat on the right. The shapes also look very smooth, but you added some texture. And then immediately we can see like, oh, that's fur, obviously. We can see some shading in there, which is really nice, even though some of the parts are still very uniform, very just a solid color. But I really like the shadows where you added some texture in there, and also the background, really nice. And at this point,
it definitely seems like.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine.
I was just gonna say, it definitely seems like you enjoy doing those details and those textures with like the background fabric here, and a lot of those like little hair details I think are really cool.
Super nice.
But that's great, like having that thing that you enjoy, assuming you do enjoy that, having that kind of shine through in your work, I think is what creates this consistent look, this like solid style that you have.
Murder mittens. Nice. And this reminds me of Van Gogh's chair. Yeah, that's right. Bit shaky. Yeah, that's an art style. It's shaky. Yeah, sure. And very cool work. Yes, but that's criminally underfollowed. Hang on. No.
Here, I'll follow right now. Bam.
Yeah, follow. There we go. I will post the link in chat. That's no. Okay. Wait. I'll post the link in chat.
So,
you have to follow. Okay.
So this is what I think makes for an interesting portfolio is these, I saw someone said in chat a bit shaky now, but it's like when I see this work, it's very intentionally, deliberately stylistic choice. Not where you see someone's drawing who maybe they're somewhat new and it looks like they were trying to go with a straight curved line, but it's just a little messed up. So that's why it reminds me of like those, I think Nickelodeon shows from some years ago, because it's it works in the way that it's done. It's very deliberate, which I think is what makes a portfolio like this compelling to me. It looks like they have a little world, they've created that has this consistency to it. I love this.
And also Okay, I think I made a mistake. Okay, no. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, good use of line weight here. You do a lot of these textured hashing lines and everything. And the way that you use very thin lines for the texture of the couch versus the thick line to outline this character to really make them pop off. And of course, the texture difference really adds to that too. This is a good use of contrast in texture and value as well. So nice work with that. I mean, when you have these images that are fairly simple stylistically, it's things like line weight, and texture where you really use as tools to draw the eye. So maybe even here, I was saying texture, but even line weight around the head, increasing that a bit could make that read really well in the way that I think this image does.
Totally. All right, we do have about let's take a look at one final project. Maybe this is already the final one because we do have about 5 minutes left in our stream.
Oh yeah.
We do have to go back to Photoshop and we have to close the stream. So final project.
Perfect.
I really like those colors, those lightings, the fairy lights in the center, really nice, and also great color scheme. It really brings across like the warmth of the sunlight and also those textures. Wow.
Yeah.
That should be a print. I hope it is.
Yeah, I love this picture. The way you drew the eye and the contrast with the warm light against the cool background works extremely well. The shapes work well. I love how you did some cropped in close-ups here for detail shots. That's really nice to be able to see when looking through a project like this. I think this is presented very nicely, and the warm and cool contrast in this is
absolutely
awesome. Yeah.
All right.
This is great.
Well, thank you very, very much for submitting your work. If you didn't get picked during this portfolio review, you can submit again for next week. I think we will do the next portfolio review on Monday again. So make sure to submit your work, and with a bit of luck, you can be picked. Is there a simple way to check values in Illustrator like Photoshop? I think that could be a question for the Illustrator Discord. There is a link, I'll put that in the chat. We do have Discords for Photoshop, Illustrator, XD, and soon there will be another one. I don't know if I can talk about that yet, but yeah, stay tuned. And okay, we have about 5 minutes, and after us, the next stream will be, Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge. Well, there we go, with Paul Trenny, so make sure to stick around and watch that stream, and also the next streams after that and the ones after that. We will be back tomorrow, by the way, so be sure to be back, behance.net/Adobe Live, and we do have about 3 minutes, so Sam?
3 minutes?
Last words.
All right.
Yeah.
That's all I need. So we're going to do that color dodge thing real quick. Before we went over to the portfolio reviews, I was showing you how I like to apply a little bit of lighting info with multiply and color dodge. Here's the difference with the multiply layer, blocking and rough shadows, super rough. We're still in the color swatch phase where I'm basically just adding a little bit of dimension to the sort of abstract tones that we already have there. So I think it helps, adds a little bit more range in the colors. So let's do color dodge. That was a multiply layer that I used for my shadows. And this is a color dodge layer that I use for my lights. Now I'm picking a yellow tone, but if you pick anything bright, it's like a nuclear blast. So I go really dark, maybe in this range here. I give it a little bit of saturation, so it's a warm tone. You can see how that's warming it up a bit. Maybe even more we could go. Even more towards orange.
By the way, if that is too intense for you, and if you don't like to use darker colors, you can use the bright colors and you can reduce the fill slider, not opacity. That's not the same. Color dodge and color burn behave differently when you decrease the fill slider. So try that out.
Oh, and one thing I should mention is I like to clip these. So I do use clipping masks in this way. You'll see this whole painting I did is on one layer. It's separate from the background. So when I clip my multiply layer to it, it creates, you can see the difference there. It just makes it clean clip. So when I'm doing that with the color dodge as well, I'll clip that. Now I can't draw outside the background, or I'm outside my character. So I just use I'm using a soft round brush here, and I'm just gonna dab the areas with some light that would be hitting the most light, like his face, the top of his chest, maybe a little bit of his forearms. I'm imagining the lights coming from kind of the top left side. I'm gonna get the top of his feathers here, and anywhere you want light to be hitting. I'm not gonna do it as much on his legs. Usually that's where the shadow starts to come off a little bit more. So really quick example, you can see that kind of boosts the lights up nicely, and may erase it off where I deem best.
And Jennifer asks, what's that brush photo you have? I think we shared a link earlier today. Perhaps Sam can share it after the stream to his brushes.
Oh yeah, the brushes, yeah, for sure.
You don't have to do it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's a quick example to finish it off.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the color swatch layer that we put to bulk out the silhouette, the design in color, in blocks of color. I used a multiply and a color dodge layer, and that's what the difference is with the multiply and color dodge. It's not super refined. We could spend as long as we want carving in the shapes to make them really accurate, but it just adds a bit more dimension.
Absolutely. So I think that is it for today. Thank you very, very much, Sam, for showing us so many awesome techniques and reviewing the portfolios and just being with us for 2 hours and accepting my German accent. I hope that was all right. Thank you for sharing the brushes link. Oh,
yeah, no problem. Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys, and being here.
Absolutely. We will be back. I mean, not we, but Paul will be back with the Daily Creative Challenge in a moment. In the meantime, make sure to participate in the challenges, submit your work, and make sure to tune in tomorrow, same time, same place. My name is Tim Möbest. This is Sam Peterson, and thank you very much for watching. Bye.
Thanks so much, everybody. Bye.
Bye.